Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell, along my co-host, Glenn Martin, and in the background, of course, DK, leader of the Feral Cow Chip. We are excited to be here on a Tuesday night. Glenn, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. I must admit, though, a bit, I don't know if disappointed, it might be too strong of a word, but Grayson Rodriguez for the Baltimore Orioles made his Camden Yards debut tonight and unfortunately was just yanked in the fifth inning with bases loaded and had a one-run lead, but that one-run lead is no more. So a little disappointing there, but nonetheless excited to see all these young baby birds coming up to the majors, and let's see what these guys got. But most importantly, I'm excited to be back live here with you guys because last time we were live, I was a bit doom and gloom, Jimbo. I mean, most people remember this was after the debacle of a pre-draft presser, where we had the Ravens PR cutting off reporters when Lamar Jackson's name was brought up. And I must admit, I was disappointed in how they handled that whole situation. But so to that point, Jimbo, let's just get right into it. How much of because let's call it what it is. They overpaid Odell Beckham. Not that I'm upset about it, but they overpaid him, right? Like they overpaid him in order to get him. And so how much of that overpayment do you think, or how much of the urgency of getting him in the door before he went and visited the Jets had anything to do with not just that recent pre-draft presser and all the backlash they were getting there, but really over the last month, all the do you think any of that played a role in them kind of jumping out there and doing something pretty outside their norm?
I would like to say no, right? But certainly you have to consider that because, Eric and the team the front office of the team I'm referring to seems very procedurally based, and they try not to let the noise on the outside get in the way of their procedure and, in the process by which they go about strategizing how they can build the team. But I think ultimately, Glenn, what it really came down to was the frustration behind not getting it right at wide receiver. Not saying that Odell is going to fix our problems. I mean, he's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay healthy. That's number one, right? Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that had some sort of a factor in that, let's just get a sure thing. Even if we overpay, it's better than having nothing. At least if he's healthy, we know he's a sure thing and a surefire producer. The Ravens haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since Hollywood had a 1,000-yard receiver. I mean, they're few and far between. How many have we had? In the past,
Torrey might have gotten there.
Maybe right.
I know. Derek Mason had 4 seasons of
right, but we're talking about
that's a long time ago.
Yeah, so ultimately, and I think Hollywood's done it, or OBJ's done it 5 or 6 times in his career, something of that nature. So shout out to him for doing that. And so, but to me, Glenn, I understand the overpayment point, but I don't know if it's overpayment in the actual money. I think it's an overpayment in the way he's paid. If he stays healthy, we're pretty sure he's going to produce. If he stays healthy, right? I mean, is that fair to say?
Yeah. Oh, that's fair. Yeah, if he's healthy,
he's going to produce, and he's going to get opportunities.
Lamar's healthy,
right, and he's going to get opportunities to produce. We know those things are true. So if that's the case, I think it's also fair to say that when healthy, I mean, where does Odell rank? Is he a top 15 wide receiver when he's healthy?
I guess that's fair because when you really stack him up against his peers, there's not too many names below his value that you go, well, that guy's way better, unless they're on their rookie deal.
But I agree with you in that the way that they paid him is very uncharacteristic of the Baltimore Ravens.
Certainly.
But I'll tell you what, Glenn.
Hey, turn down your gain a little bit. I think you're.
Is it? See, yeah.
Maybe I
was
crazy.
Worried about that. No. How is it now?
That's better.
Okay, cool. I'll tell you what. Something that's really interesting to me about life in general is I'm just going to tell you a quick anecdote, okay? And this is how I'm going to explain this. So there's a lady every Thanksgiving puts her turkey in the oven, right? Cuts off the legs when she puts her turkey in the oven, right? Her son-in-law said, "Why you cut off the legs when you put the turkey in the oven?" "Oh, that's how my mom did it," right? So went back and she asked her mom, "Mom, why do you cut the legs off the turkey when you put it in the oven. She was like, well, that's how my mom did it, right? She went back to ask her mom. Ends up finding out that the reason their great-great-grandmother did it was because her oven was too small. That's the only reason. The reason I'm saying that is because just because the Ravens are doing something different, I don't think it's all connected to like this overwhelming urge or desperation or all these things. I think it's just simply, hey, this is a new way to, get talent in the room, whether it's using voidable years like we'll talk about, whether it's getting, the more money up front, whatever, then we're going to exploit that. We're not just going to keep doing the same thing because this is what we do. Obviously, there's certain things within the fabric of the franchise that they'll always do. The draft is going to be a big deal for the Ravens every year based on the nature of the franchise. But ultimately, it just comes down to picking the best strategic way to get it done, right? And if other teams have had success using a contract breakdown that way, then do it. So that's a really roundabout way to say it's only overpayment if he's not healthy.
Yeah. That's a good. And honestly, when I looked at it, when I first saw the numbers, I said, wow, that's more than I thought he was going to get, because apparently, the rumors out there is that the incentives that would make this contract $18 million in value aren't that unreachable. So
right.
That sounds like a gross overpayment. But then when you really look at the average annual, if you look at the average, yearly salary for all the receivers in the league, it's not really, Hunter Renfro's getting more than him. He's getting 15.8. I wouldn't say Hunter Renfro is a game changer to the degree of Odell Beckham. He's a chain mover and he's he can get some tough catches, but I wouldn't put him on peak level. I wouldn't put him up where Odell Beckham is. You look at the guys, Cortland Sutton's making the same as him. Healthy, I'll take Odell Beckham. Like, there's not a lot of guys on the list that are below. I don't know of any right now. I have the whole list up of I don't see any that aren't on their rookie deal that are better than him if they're healthy. So I think it's not quite as an overpayment as most people say. But let's get back to It's Just Quan had a comment up here I want to talk about, because before we get it, because we're going to get into the contract, because I think a lot of people criticize the Ravens for a lot of things. One thing that they get criticized a lot is their inability to manipulate the cap. I hear Eric DeCosta getting bashed all the time on Twitter about his inability to get creative with the cap. Well, I think they did that this year, but It's Just Quan says still go first round wide receiver. Wow. Lamar got to play then. Well, that's kind of a two-part thing. And I like that he put it that way, because I think both are kind of two different questions that I think are worth talking about. First things first, still go wide receiver. Man, I would be surprised to see them go wide receiver in the first round. Now, if they trade back and are somehow able to pick up multiple picks and still ends up being their first pick as a wideout, but then that pick's in the second round, maybe. But man, I would be really surprised with them going number one receiver with Odell Beckham. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree with you there, Glenn. I think they take a flyer on a guy that maybe has some performance red flags, that did well in college or is a small school guy. Think about like a Brandon Williams type pickup where there's a high upside, but there's just maybe not a ton known about him, or once again, maybe he was in a small school. So obviously Brandon was a third rounder. So, I still think they draft a wide receiver, but I think it ends up being a guy like that. So that's kind of, that's the way that I see it going. I agree with you there. As a quick PSA, I'm only saying this because he put it on Twitter, so it's already public. One of our patrons, unfortunately, Jimmy Kidwell, just got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So I just saw that on Twitter. Jimmy, if there's anything we can do to help at all, I don't know what Glenn and I could do, but certainly we're wishing the best of luck to you and your family, and we hope that you're able to recover and figure things out. So prayers, thoughts to you and your family, man. That's terrible. We hope for nothing but the best. But Glenn, absolutely. I do see them taking a receiver. Just not in the first. Yeah, not in the first. And then
to the second part,
what if the kid out of TCU falls? Like, maybe he falls out of the first?
Maybe. That's possible.
I'm just saying there's some names.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. He's got some drop issues, which I think would give me Perriman flashbacks. But to the second part of his question or his comment, he says that then Lamar will have to come. How much of because I think to a certain degree, signing Odell Beckham Jr. is an effort to make sure that, let's say he is playing, Lamar ultimately is just going to play under the franchise tag. What's the what is the motivation for him to want to show up early to go to some of these offseason programs other than getting familiar with his targets and learning the new offense? But if Odell Beckham Jr. is not here and he has relatively the same receiving core, then I think his motivation to come early and start that, process a little bit earlier than he would be required to by the letter of the rule, according to the franchise tag, I think it helps make him more likely to want to come in early because Odell's here. And then maybe if a draft pick's here, do you think that helps as well?
Yeah, and I don't think it's about him wanting to or not. I think ultimately you're in a battle for money, right? So you're in a battle for perception. Sometimes perception is reality. The pressure on Lamar will increase to get there, to be a good teammate, to be a leader, because that's how he's going to make himself money, right? Mm-hmm. So you're right. Maybe there's some built-in excuses he could tell other teams or the media come up with, well, look who he's throwing to. Bateman's not there yet, whatever, right? But if he's got a brand new, shiny toy and potential WR1 in Odell, and then, a draft pick that a lot of people have, high upside, on. Yeah, absolutely. I think the pressure is on Lamar to get there early. The ball's in his court. If he's about his money, makes enough sense to get there and do the right things, right? Ultimately, that's what it is. DK, you got something up here. Is this the cap? Is that what this is? You want to throw it up here? We'll just take a look at it. I don't even know what it is.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Perfect. So this is the and it goes perfectly with Chris's comments. So Beckham Jr. will earn a base salary of $1.165 million and a signing bonus of $13.835 million, which they also added four voidable years, which causes his cap hit to only be $3.932 million in the first season. However, and he goes on to say he wants to send a third-round pick to Arizona for DeAndre Hopkins. But however, what this will do is if they are not able, and correct me if I'm wrong, if they're not able to get an extension done with Odell Beckham, which hopefully they can, then it will be, I think, I have it written down here, $11 million in dead money next season because of those voidable years. So this doesn't necessarily mean it's kind of a gamble for the Ravens to do this because it gives leverage to Odell Beckham, hands down, because he's going, oh, well, if you don't sign me, then you're going to have an $11 million against your cap for me not to play on your team. I don't think they want to do that. So it certainly is a gamble for the Ravens to do this. This is something that's got to be outside their comfort zone, certainly creative with the cap. But Jimbo, what are your thoughts on the fact that, because this is a big deal, if they can't sign him, think about this, Jimbo. Bateman's the only receiver under contract past next season. So if they can't sign Odell Beckham next year, they're going to have to do all this all over again. They're going to have to rebuild this wide receiver core all over again outside of Rashad Bateman. Does that have you any bit of concern?
Yes and no. Yes, in that, would you be that upset by an overhaul?
I mean, but it's constant.
Contractually, right. Yeah, it would be nice to get some consistency around here.
Yeah.
For sure, but we want it to be the right guys. So yes and no. It's a bummer that, we could have 4, 5, 6 new faces in training camp at the wide receiver position next year, and obviously whittle that down. But, I guess I would lean more towards yes. It's a gamble here. They've certainly put a lot of faith in him. Something that was interesting, Josina Anderson is who I go to for my Lamar Jackson information. I don't know if either of you guys saw this or anyone out there, but on her podcast, she had a 9-minute video explaining why Odell signed with the Ravens. And she repeatedly said that Odell Beckham, people can say whatever they want about the money. He follows his heart, and he felt like the Ravens cared, like they really wanted him, like he was important to them. And that obviously Steve Bisciotti did a great job at helping him understand the support that he's going to get as a Baltimore Raven. And that's exciting because when I think of all these signings at the wide receiver position later in careers, obviously you talk about Derek Mason, success. You talk about Anquan Bolden, success. You talk about Steve Smith, success. 2 out of 3 of those guys are going to go in the Hall of Fame, certainly. And, Derek Mason certainly has an argument to make, but 2 of them are, one of them for sure. And Anquan is gonna go in as a Raven. And that's exciting stuff. You only spent 3 years here. So I think this is an exciting opportunity for Odell to actually, I feel like he feels comfortable being himself. As John has gotten older as a coach, I think he's gotten better at allowing guys to be themselves. That's something that Steve Smith still talks about to this day, is that he felt like he could be himself in Baltimore. And I think Odell's going to be himself as well. So I think it's a good match. And I think that my point in saying all this, Glenn, is as long as he stays healthy, I think he ends up being here long term. I think it ends up working out because it makes more sense to pay a guy like that the top dollar when he's got a year of production already under his belt on your team, right? And he's got the upside. I mean, he's a freakish athlete. He's one of one in a lot of categories athletically at his position. So, yeah, man, it's a gamble for sure. But outside of health, I think they might feel. I know, obviously, they feel confident that they're putting their faith in the right guy.
And they got it. I think also Odell was motivated by the fact that if he goes to New York, what's he at best of 3? You know, he's behind Garrett Wilson. He's behind Allen Lazard.
And maybe not in his own mind.
No, but he's got to think that Aaron Rodgers would look at it. I mean, Allen Lazard's his guy. That's the guy he brought over. They're paying him, what, $20 million? I mean, they're giving him good money. So I think when he looks at us, he goes, I have a chance to go in there and take over number 1. I mean,
well, and more power to him, Glenn, because you've been beating the drum on this for a long time. Anybody that plays football with Lamar Jackson at wide receiver, well, kind of this more towards the Greg Roman offense, but even with Lamar being a dual threat quarterback and us having a good run game going into next year, we're assuming that's not going away. With that in mind, there's going to be a loaded box. There's going to be a lot of one-on-one scenarios. So if you're a dog, take advantage of those opportunities. You know, I just think that that's a huge deal. And I think that maybe Odell saw that too, just like you said, and saw the cupboard was a little bare, said, all right, I'm getting the ball a lot, and I got a run game that's going to support the heck out of me.
No doubt. Chris White says, you can be yourself as long as you don't complain about being overworked.
Yeah. Well, Odell has I've never seen anything about Odell Beckham not willing to work. I mean, if anyone's seen him right now, he's absolutely chiseled. You can tell the dude is not allergic to the weight room.
No.
So, yeah, Odell knows how to put the work in. So I agree. I mean, Chris is right. Like,
who complained about? Is he referring to somebody?
I don't think he's referring to anyone. I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that Odell's ever had an issue with the work.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think. Yeah, but I still have, you know, as much as I'm excited. Look, I'm excited about the signing, but I still have my concerns about after this upcoming year, even if all things go well.
Sure.
But I will say this: I hope that Odell is open to in-season negotiations because I think that would be certainly valuable. Marcus says Lamar will be back for sure. If we have another disappointing season, we're clearing house. This means I concede on my draft night trade theory. Okay. Yeah, and I'm with you too, Marcus. I had a draft night trade theory. It's out the window. I don't see them trading Lamar now. He's here.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to say these names out loud, and then I want to get your opinion on this, Glenn. So let's just say our defense duplicates, or let's call it a 10% drop from what they did last year, right? They lost some key pieces. Call it a 10% drop. 15, even 15, you're still at an elite defense, in my opinion, right? And then just think of this, okay? So you have Odell Beckham Jr., you have Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and then you have Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Lamar Jackson, an all-pro left tackle in Ronnie Stanley, a Pro Bowl right tackle in Morgan Moses, probably Pro Bowl next year, and certainly rookie, all-team rookie, right?
Tyler
Linderbaum. And then you got Kevin Zeitler, and you got one question mark at left guard. What other questions do you have on offense right now, except the left guard position and the health of Bateman and Odell?
And really, you don't have a ton. And honestly, I'm not concerned about left guard. Like, it's not like
it's just a question mark, but it's not a concern. You're right.
Falele, they got Makari, they got Ben Cleveland, they got a bunch of guys who I would feel very good. And that's also, wasn't Ben Cleveland on the staff in Georgia when Todd Monken was there?
I don't know if there was an overlap.
I thought his first season was
Let's see.
Cleveland's last season. I could be wrong, but I thought it coincided with Kirby Smart arriving.
Let's see.
But yeah, so I'm not concerned about left guard. So to your point,
3 seasons.
who's
go ahead.
that?
Monken spent 3 seasons at Georgia.
So I think then that would make sense. That's his last year.
Yeah.
Because he's been here 2 years. This is his 3rd year for Ben Cleveland.
Yep.
So yeah. So he knows him. He knows him damn well, and he played phenomenal his last year there. But I don't even think it's going to be him. I think it's going to be McCary, personally. But
really?
I think they want it to be Faalele.
I was going to say, I think it's going to be Faalele.
Yeah, I think he's going to have every opportunity. But McCary, I just, if you want your best guys out there, I think McCary's going to end up being one of those guys in the end. But I hope I'm wrong because I think Faalele and Ben Cleveland have better upside.
Yeah, and what if we don't have to get too much down a rabbit hole because I feel like you and I are the type of people that could talk offensive line for a while. But maybe not everyone, is excited about it as I am. However, one theory I do have is like, I wonder if you let Faalele sit behind Morgan Moses one more year and learn and grow and do those things and in hopes that, you don't want to take away from his development at right tackle. Kind of like, I know a lot of people complain about Tyree Phillips never getting an opportunity at one position. I don't know if any of that is a learn from experience and you do plug in a McCary or a Ben Cleveland who, is a guard by nature, even if Faalele might be the slightly better option, but then you have a surefire backup at tackle and you got a guy that you're developing because probably going to be Morgan Moses, 2 of the 3 years. This will be a 2nd year of a 3-year deal. He might be, out of the picture in the following year. Just something interesting to think about how they deploy Faalele next year.
Yeah. And I've always been the camp of I don't have a problem with you guys moving guys up and down the offensive line because, in my opinion, if you were a stud at one spot, it's not like they're gonna move you to another spot and then forget that you were really good at that other spot in case you don't show out at that one. It's not, I feel like those guys like Tyree Phillips, I think he just flamed out because he just wasn't as good as people were hoping he would be. But Raymond says, although we just signed OBJ, I'd love to see another wide receiver in the 1st round. I like Johnson's size. Need a bigger wide receiver. Rich Eisen suggested we go after D-Hop too. My whole thing about D-Hop is, you have 5 draft picks. So if you give up another one, so what, you're going to have 4? It just seems so counterintuitive to the way the Ravens like to do business, especially when we just got done hearing Eric DeCosta talk about he wants to acquire more picks, not get rid of the few he has. But also on top of that, right now the Ravens have $3 million in cap space. At least 2.5 of that's going to the draft, the rookie draft class. And that's if they don't add more. But like if they trade out of the 1st and get somehow like 2 seconds out of it, then that makes it even tighter to their $3 million in cap space. So how are they going to fit D-Hop under the cap? And D-Hop wants an extension for the team he's going to. He doesn't want to play out just the last, year or 2 of his deal.
Right.
I just don't see how it makes it's. I love D-Hop. I think he'd be a great Raven. I just don't see how it's possible.
Yeah, no, I mean, so possibility, I think that there is maybe a way, but you talk about a risk with Odell. Think about the risk you would have. We'd end up, before you know it, would be the Rams.
Yeah. You don't want to be the Rams right now.
And the Baltimore Ravens do not want that. So, yeah, absolutely. You do not want to be the Rams right now. So, yeah, I would love it as well. I just don't know how you feasibly get it done. I don't know what else to say there other than that I agree with you. I mean, it just is what it is. I would have loved to have him, but I think it was an either-or scenario.
Yeah.
It had to be an either-or scenario. So, yeah, man, it's just...
Well, let's transition then, because the Ravens always say they want to go into the draft with all their holes plugged so they can truly go best player available. It looks like they've kind of started to do this at wide receiver, and I think most are saying, well, with that move, it certainly doesn't mean the Ravens have to go wide receiver in the first couple rounds even. But it still looks pretty bare at the cornerback position. Do you think this signing means there's no chance Marcus Peters is back? That's my first question.
Well, him and Odell hate each other. They hate each other.
Do they?
They have deep hate for each other.
Oh, I didn't
know. Just saying.
I didn't know about their personal hatred towards each other.
Yeah.
But does that mean, okay, so for that reason alone, he's gone. Okay. So could it be more obvious where the Ravens are going in the first round this year? Like,
I have a
gotta be
theory. Do
corner?
you want to? I mean, maybe, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, and it's exactly what's going to happen.
Okay.
We're going to drop. We're going to trade out of the first round. We're going to drop into the second round, pick up some picks, and we're going to draft somewhere in the second round the best guard in this draft.
No way.
Yep. It's not going to be
believe
fun.
I don't believe
Okay,
you.
that's fine, but I mean, how much longer Zeitler got left? We don't know what's going on at left tackle. We got a lot of question marks, or excuse me,
They
left
aren't
guard.
drafting no damn guard in the first round. You're out
Eric
of your mind.
said it. No, not the
out
first round.
of your
No,
mind.
not the first round. They're going to trade back to wherever they end up feeling like they can absolutely get the best guard. If it's further back in the second round, that's fine. But I just think they pick up more picks. Priority number one seems like in Eric's opinion. And I think they take a guard high. I'm calling it. Not sexy. But if they don't and they stay at the pick, it's all going to come down to what, you know, how the board falls. What's your take on Porter? It seems like they really like this kid. He's a physical kid. Look, everyone's giving me flack for it. I'm just telling you, the Ravens don't make sexy picks. Okay. But when they trade back to pick,
they just got Bateman in the first round. They got Hollywood in the first round.
That's fine. I'm not talking about the first round, though. They're going to trade. They got 5 picks. Eric's freaking out right now.
I bet they will trade.
He has no fingernails
but
left.
They're not taking no damn guard.
Okay.
Stop it.
All right.
What are they going to do?
They just took a center in the first round.
Yeah,
they just took a center in the first round. Because why?
They needed a center.
They needed it.
They don't need a guard.
Well, Ben Cleveland can't stay on the field. He's made of glass. The biggest glass man I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, stop it.
Look, I'm just saying.
They had nothing at center when they took a center. And there was a generational guy at center.
What if there's a generational guard coming out?
Have you heard?
I have not heard.
That's because there ain't.
We'll see. I'm just saying.
You look, you can Jim Rome me all you want. They ain't taking no damn left guard with their first pick.
And I didn't say the first round. Glenn's over here trying to gaslight me.
I said first pick. I said
you did say first pick.
Yeah.
That time you said first pick. The other times you said first round.
Well, okay. Well, chances are they're going to pick in the first round.
I will argue that. I believe there's a much higher percentage that they trade back than they actually pick in the first round. What say you? Are you? Wait, sorry. You just froze up for a second. I apologize. What'd you say?
Oh, I'm just saying they can trade back and still pick in the first round. I think both.
They can. So you think they trade back to later in the first and pick up some picks to stay in the first round?
I think they're going to sign Rock, the cornerback. He's 27 years old. Now he's had some injury issues.
Yeah,
but he's extremely talented. They've already had him in for a workout. They didn't sign him yet. I think he's an obvious possibility. I think Shaq Griffin's another possibility. He's a 28-year-old corner who had an injury year last year, which is again perfect for the Ravens because they want to get him for cheap. There's a bunch of guys out there. Point to sign at least one of these names, and I'm hoping it's Rocky Sin because I think he's got the most upside. Even though he's had injury issues throughout.
What's your faith level? What's your confidence level in Brandon Stevens? How are you going to be freaking out if Brandon Stevens is opposite, is listed in the top of the depth chart opposite Marlon Humphrey? Like at the end of the draft?
100%. Panic.
Really?
Freaking out.
Interesting. Because one thing I know about John.
I like him because of what he is.
I was going to say, one thing I like about, I know John likes about his corners is he likes physical, press, big, long, athletic corners. Same with the Ravens in history. You know, I mean, their franchise history, if you look at the guys they've drafted high at corner, generally speaking, they are those type of guys. And like you said, he fits that profile. Now he's got other valleys in his game, like other areas that he needs to work on. But maybe the Ravens are a little more enamored with Brandon Stevens than we are giving them credit for. You know, maybe the Liars Luncheon, they spoke so highly of corner because maybe they're really not going early corner because they do like Stevens. I don't know. But I guess really my question is, how much respect should we be putting on Brandon Stevens? You're saying none?
No, none. But he's 2 corner. I think he's a 4.
Okay.
He's a 4, and he's got versatility because he's played some corner and some safety. He can be a bit positionless. He can be tough to, when he comes on the field, it can be tough for the opposing offense to know exactly what role he's going to play because he can play multiple different roles. But the one role he can't play is an outside corner that you can count on to start. There's just no way, in my opinion. I think he's physical, but I think he has trouble finding the ball. He gets a little too handy when the ball is, reaching the point of attack.
Definitely.
I would have I would be very nervous if they took, and not only that, this is a year that is really unprecedented in how good it is and how deep it is at the cornerback position. This draft is, what I'm hearing is that it's so much better at corner than it is at wideout that you could make a legit argument that there's 5 better corners in the draft that are better than all the wideouts in the whole draft. So if you're a cornerback needy team, why are you not going corner? I don't really understand it in a draft that's really just stacked with great corners that have everything you're looking for. James Lee Wiley says, no, James, they're going to draft a cab. Duh. I'm not sure what cab.
Cornerback?
I think what he meant to say is cornerback. I'm just going to say cornerback, and I agree with him. I think it is. I think it's obvious.
I think there's obvious need for sure. Like they need it and they need it bad. I don't. Let's see, DK. If they don't find a corner in the draft, they can sign one of the two between Rock and Peters. Yeah,
they might be able to get Rock, and I think they're doing both. I think they're going to sign Rock or sign one of these guys, Shaq Griffin, or sign one of them, and they're going to draft a corner, both, because they need more than just one, in my opinion. I don't think they're set if there's just one. The corners are going to get hurt. It's just a matter of time. So you got to get more.
Yeah, fair. That's fair. But all I'm saying is that don't be disappointed when they get a big boy up front. That's all I'm saying. It's the last time I'm going to say it. That's all I'm going to say about it. I think Jimbo's right with the whole trade back and take a guard. LOL. So Ravens like it is. And pushback is that the picks thing was said at the Liars Luncheon, which we usually do the opposite.
Not always. He does both.
It's true. Not all.
He'll tell you what he's doing, and then he'll tell you the opposite of what he's doing the next year. So you really don't know. All I'll say is this. The year that we took Pat Queen, what was the most glaring, obvious need?
Yeah, it was inside linebacker for sure.
And then when we took Linderbaum, like everyone was saying, if we see Macari at starting center after him throwing the ball over Lamar, got his head wrung off I just feel like it's such an obvious need, and it's such a great draft to need a corner. Like there's no better. My only concern is that they start going higher and we start to see that run of 4 guys go earlier than expected. Because I really think if the Ravens, if there's still only like 2 of those corners drafted by the time they're picking, then they're definitely trading back, and they're happy to do it because they still have a bunch of guys they like.
Yeah, I don't disagree with your logic in that it makes a lot of sense for them to take a corner early. Part of, just like Marcus Orr said, part of the reason for my thinking was that like the Ravens would absolutely do that. Like, oh, all these sexy guys are on the board. Let's trade back and we'll get 4 more picks.
Yeah.
And we'll get our top rated guard.
I got them more likely taking a D tackle than a left guard.
Yeah. If they stay in the first, I do see a big D tackle that just fell. And then if they trade out, it could be an offensive guy. But guard might be a stretch, but you know what? I'm sticking with it for now. My opinion could change tomorrow.
Be single. I didn't see a comment, but appreciate you.
Oh, there it is. Guys, that was too much money for OBJ. Eric DaCosta is really showing he's a rookie at being a GM. How can you guarantee that much money to a 2-time ACLer and not give your franchise quarterback who means everything? Well, speaking of franchise quarterbacks and 2-time ACLers, the Browns signed a $235 million guaranteed to a 2-time ACLer. So there's a lot of guys out there that are 2-time ACLers. What's the name? Oh, why am I blanking on his name? The linebacker, played next to Kuechly. Thomas he
Davis.
Has like 2. Yeah. Thomas Davis, 2 or 3 time. I think 3-time ACLer, 2 in the league and 1 in college. It's just not as big of a thing as it used to be. And then in addition to that, if you're going to count on one guy to be a freakish enough athlete to recover from an ACL, I would put my money on Odell Beckham Jr. It just look who his parents are.
Look, there's no doubt that there was more.
God.
There was more motivators other than just what he could bring to the field. You got to understand. There was starting to become this. Look, how did the Browns get Deshaun Watson? They gave him double in guarantees that anyone has ever gotten. The reason they did that, the reason they felt they had to do that, is because for 10 years, ESPN and every other place made it very clear that if you go there as a quarterback, you are going to be in for a world of hurt. You know, the jersey where it had 23 quarterbacks listed. Like, they had to break perception. There's no way they were getting Deshaun Watson. He was already gone. And they said, we have to do something desperate. So, yeah, the Ravens did have to do something a little bit desperate and get this guy in here because they needed to change that perception out there that wide receivers don't want to come here. This is a place you go to die as a pass catcher. They needed to flip that. So I agree that there was some desperation here, but I don't think that it's necessarily means there can't be production with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, you got to do something to get yourself out of a rut, right? I mean, you just do what you got to do, and this is what the Ravens had to do. So
and anyway, it's like, gosh, can they do anything right? It's
right,
like,
exactly. You can't be mad at them for saying, look, we're going to figure this thing out, even if we got to overpay. Let's just do it. Hey, at least he wasn't a serial. Right. At least we're not spending on a guy that makes uncertified masseuses sign NDAs before their meetings.
I just don't understand. It's like, what can you do to win? It's like, spend money, give him a weapon. As soon as they sign someone, it's like, let's bash the guy for,
too much money. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And by the way, this had nothing to do with impact. It didn't impact. Right. 15 million is different. Thank you. Yeah, this in no way that 15 would impact their decision making on Lamar Jackson. Again, people still tend to forget. I don't know why the Lamar Jackson only fans are forgetting the point that the Ravens gave him the best offer that anyone gave him, but the Ravens hate him and they don't like him. I don't get it.
You just had the Lamar Jackson only fans. I just wanted to dispel any rumors. Lamar Jackson, as far as I know, does not have an only
Lamar
fans.
Jackson exclusive
it was funny.
Fans. I don't know how to say it. The fans Lamar who are only here, they're not Ravens fans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they act like there's such hate. It's like the Ravens gave him more money. Do the Cowboys like him? No, they don't like him more than the Ravens. Go down the list. None of them like him more than the Ravens do.
Right. No, for sure. Marcus Orr says, fair enough, Glenn. You got me with that PQ call back.
Appreciate it, Marcus.
Yeah. I think you were talking about the draft need, right? That's what.
And even at wideout, I mean, when we needed a wideout, who'd they take? They took a wideout.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Eli Hoff says, besides cornerback and wide receiver, what else is EDC looking for in the draft? I'm thinking another young lineman and possibly a pass rusher. Yeah, we can't sleep on pass rusher. I mean, I literally don't know who we have at pass rusher outside of Tyus, Ajabo, and Adafe.
That's it. So you do know. That's it.
Oh, okay. Well, great. That's a bad sign then. That's a really bad sign if that's it. So, yeah, we talked about maybe a D tackle, that falls. Maybe a pass rusher that falls that's, I don't know, maybe he's a Hassan Riddick and people, consider him undersized or what, like, on the height, weight, speed thing he's off. Yeah, you know what I mean? There's going to be a guy like that out there. There is every year. Who was the dude that, did ecstasy in college? His name was Noah. He ended up playing for the Bucks. He fell. He was a pass rusher. Gosh dang it. What's his name? He was another guy that I liked. He didn't end up doing well in the NFL. Noah Fant. Is that his name?
That's a tight end.
Is that a tight? Okay. Dang it. I'll figure out his name. He didn't end up doing well, but yeah, there's always a guy at pass rush that
gotta have more pass rushers.
Yeah, for sure. And so that'll be interesting to see how they add to that. Cause that's something, Glenn, honestly, we haven't given too much time to. We have talked about it. I think
they got to take a wide out. You talk about, a quarterback. You talk about another position. I think they draft a young quarterback late in the draft because Tyler Huntley's not here. I don't think Todd Monken.
Glenn is what you're picketing for? What's his name?
I'm just saying Stetson Bennett would make a lot of sense. I'm not saying I want to be my starter, but if the guy comes in here, he already knows the offense day one. He's won in this offense. He would help whoever the quarterback is. Hopefully it's Lamar, especially if Lamar's a latecomer to camp, which some are expecting him to be. Matt might want to have another expert in the room with him on this offense, and he would be an expert on this offense and all the terminology. So I think he helps in a lot of ways. We don't have a backup on the staff. So who else do you want to be the backup if not him? Because Tyler Huntley, I don't think is the guy. I don't think Todd Monken wants him to be the guy. He wasn't brought here to run Todd Monken's offense. He was brought here to run Greg Roman's. So I don't. Yeah. Who else is good? If not him, then who else?
Yeah, who's the? I mean, Anthony Brown was. He had a game or two, game and a half, whatever. That's at least another guy. You
but Todd Monken might go. He don't fit my offense.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, he only led the Pac-12 in passing for a year. He was
an undrafted guy for a reason, though, Jimbo. It's not like just the Ravens are the only team that believed in him.
Yeah, that's true. Wait, we still got a bet on Stetson Bennett, though, right?
Yeah, what did I bet? He'd go
third round or higher?
No, I didn't.
Yes, DK.
No, you said that. I said he would be later.
No, I said later. No, you said higher.
No,
DK.
Listen, hold on.
I don't like the kid.
Hold on, Jimmy. Hold on. I said he'd be a late pick. Then I pulled up DraftPlex and was like, "Oh, I'm wrong. DraftPlex has him as a third round pick."
I don't even like the kid. Why did I say a top 3 pick?
Because you still that's just where he's projected, and I don't want to. I think he would. I don't want him if he's a third round pick. I want him if he's a 5th round pick. But hey, most people are projecting him to go higher than I thought. I thought he was a 4th or 5th, and
I think he's like a 5th to 7th.
Well, if he's a 5th to 7th, then we should definitely take the guy. Irvin Green says Queen for D-Hop, take Deontay Banks, and he goes by Tay Banks at number 22 and figure out the rest. Yeah, I don't think the Cardinals want Queen for D-Hop. That's the problem there. Yeah, that'd be great. Take Deontay, that would be awesome. But again, I think D-Hop is a dream that will never be realized. Even though I would love him, I think he's a Raven. He plays like a Raven. I would love it. I just don't see how they can get him and how they can keep him happy and paid. I don't see it. But I would love.
And it's just another guy without an agent.
Oh, is that?
He's going to collect them all.
He will take every player in the league that doesn't have an agent.
Freaking Bobby Wagner, come on back over, dude. Gosh, so ridiculous. Irvin Green says, I don't think they take an edge rusher in the draft at all. Oh, gosh. They got new coach Chuck Smith to develop the guys that are in the squad. Just my opinion. Irvin, I hear you, but if I'm not mistaken, there's only 3 on the squad, right? On the roster right now, we only have 3.
How many? Yeah, but how many do they keep typically at the outside linebacker position? I don't think it's like terribly low. And
I would say like 4, right?
Exactly. They already got 3. And a lot of people say if worse comes to worse, they're going to go get Houston again. Although I think I'd be okay.
Is Dalen Hayes officially on the roster, DK?
Yeah, he is. I'm looking at him right now on the depth chart. So you got Dalen Hayes. Yeah.
That's fair.
Again, not a guy I feel thrilled about, but you got Jeremiah Moon also. Again, another guy. But yeah, so you got 3 that you feel at least okay about. Obviously disappointed in lack of production from Oweh, but maybe Chuck Smith's the answer. And with Ajabo healthy, who knows what those guys can do together. And so are you giving up on Dalen?
Yeah, I mean, he's a nice guy, but he's nice. I feel bad because I know he's a nice guy, but
no, I think to Irvin's
he doesn't have the athleticism. He doesn't have the flexibility. He doesn't have the explosion. Doesn't have
and he's never available. That's the biggest problem I have with him. You got to be available. And to this point, he hasn't been. But so I think like to Irvin's point, though, it's not like the cupboard is so bare that they have to take one high. But I'm like you. If you find a guy who maybe has a certain trait, but is maybe a little lackluster in some other areas, and that causes him to slip, but pass rush is one area where he's got some upside, let's bring him in because we need more pass rushers is what we need.
Yep, 100%. I agree with you there. So yeah, that's a good point he brings up. Let's see. Damani Duggar says, agree with James on trading back, or we get best player available, quote unquote, Roquan. He's here. He's there. He's every. Oh yes, I love it. You gotta watch it, dude. Roy Kent. He's here. He's there. He's every fucking where, Glenn. Roy Kent. And
All right.
put Cam to bed before you watch it because there's a lot of F-bombs, but it's hilarious.
Okay.
All right. It's the best show on television right now, and it's not even close. Not even close.
Okay. We're trying to sell me on this show.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Chris White says they better not draft at the number 1 pick defensive player outside of defensive back. Chris, you might be disappointed, like Glenn said, when they go D tackle and they get the best defensive tackle in the draft.
Well, you're saying you don't want to draft any defensive players except for DBs
at the number 1 pick.
I didn't see that.
Oh, my bad. I thought he said draft in the first, but he's saying draft 1 at all. Okay. Yeah, that's bad. That ain't happening. This is the Baltimore Ravens we're talking about.
Yeah.
Plus our offense, we just went over it. Our offense is actually pretty complete.
Yeah, I mean, I think
we got team needs just like everyone else, but
yeah, but it's not like there's like a glaring weakness. Now, if OBJ, which I think everything's pointing he will be healthy, and if Bateman's ready to run with the foot surgery, I think that is still a little uncertain when he's going to be ready, and as well as Devin Duvernay. So I guess they can still certainly add to the room, but they don't have to do it with the first round pick. But I think it's pretty unlikely, Chris, that we won't see them take a single defensive player that's not a DB just by the numbers of it and the fact that they have beliefs in certain positions that it's a good idea to take at least one every season, even if it's late. So
yeah, I agree. Pick. I mean, you got to fill the coffers, especially when you're a team like the Ravens, who philosophically and economically believe the best way to get better is through the draft. You have to continue to fill the coffer, fill the hopper, you have to kiss some toads to get some princes, right?
Yeah. That's a way to put it.
You have to.
I mean, people are saying the offense isn't, you don't need a running back, right? Because you got three good running backs.
Yeah.
And you're not
all under contract.
All under contract. So you got Dobbins, you got Edwards, you got Justice Hill. So you're set at running back. At tight end, you got three absolute, you got three studs, in my opinion. I mean, you got at least one bona fide all-pro. You got Likely with crazy upside, and you got Kohler, who, although came on late, showed a little bit of flash.
Mm-hmm. Do we have a fourth there that we're missing? No. Okay.
I mean, Pat Ricard. Yeah, Pat Ricard.
Yeah, it's like a quasi, for sure. Right.
So you're good there. At offensive line, like Jimmy already laid out, you're good at right tackle with Morgan Moses. You're good at right guards with Zeitler. You're good at center with Tyler Linderbaugh. You're good at left tackle with Stanley. And I think the combination of either McCary or Faalele or Ben Cleveland, I think you're pretty much good there. I mean,
you got
add some depth. You got options. Exactly. If Lamar's here at quarterback, you're obviously good there. So maybe wide receiver, you could say, well, if you're counting on two guys that have been hurt a lot, add some depth. Okay, yeah, let's add some there. But let's not act like the cupboard's completely bare on the offensive side of the ball. That's just, come on. That's just crazy. Yeah, and Nelson Aguilar. I forgot about him.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, so it's crazy how you add one name to the mix and all of a sudden the offense, like I'm feeling real encouraged about the wide receivers right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Feeling real encouraged.
It lets everybody fall into their role.
Yeah, it's huge.
Which in the beginning of the season, we saw them in their kind of their proper roles. And Devin Duvernay looked like an absolute monster until he was put in a role that I think was too big for him.
Yep.
And he was hurt, I think, also when that role was kind of taken on.
Yeah, I forgot who it was, but somebody, dang it, mentioned that. Oh, I actually think it was former Raven Tony. Help me out here. Safety.
Tony Pollard?
No. Why am I saying Tony? He played with Eric Weddle at the same time. Came from Arizona.
Oh, Jefferson. That's why.
Tony Jefferson, right?
Yeah, Tony Jefferson.
Yeah, I think he tweeted. I think it was him that tweeted. As far as route running duo, these two are probably top in the league, referring to Bateman and OBJ. Which, when is the last time you've heard anything about the Ravens wide receiver room being associated with anything at top of the league other than drops and disappointment?
That's a good point.
Like, I mean, that's so huge. So
they're tacticians, man.
Right. It's got to be exciting going into this draft, knowing that I do think that there's some, there's only 5 picks. It's always pressure packed, but there is some situations in which Eric's going to be able to sit back and say, okay, who really is the best player here? I mean, I agree with you. We need a corner and things like that. But like I said, there might be some guys in the cornerback room that Eric and John feel better about than we do.
Yeah.
And so I believe when the Ravens are in a situation, not all the time, but when they're in a situation where they can sit and wait and it's purely, okay, this is our board. This is the top guy on our board. Boom, we're taking him. Mm-hmm. It usually turns out really, really well for the Baltimore Ravens because I think we have a good scouting unit and I think we have a good process for evaluating talent.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And we've seen a situation where the Ravens were limited in their draft picks. I'm trying to pull that up now, but there was a season where they only had a handful and they really nailed it. Oh man, I think that was the
I'm going to pull it up. The Chris McAllister draft class, they only had 6.
Yeah. But they freaking nailed it. So it's not like there's not a history here of really dealing with a limited draft selection and making the most of it. Because oftentimes when you have 12 picks, you might take more risk with some of those picks on guys that maybe have upside, but also have pretty low floors.
Dude, this is a good list.
Let me see.
Okay. First pick, number 10 overall, Chris McAllister. Second pick, 4th round, Brandon Stokely. Third pick, 4th round, Edwin Mulitalo. And then 4th pick, 7th round, Anthony Poindexter.
That was it. That's all they had.
That's all I see is 4 picks.
Yeah,
they hit.
But 3 of them they knocked out of the park.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about big contributors in the Super Bowl. Obviously, Brandon Stokely caught the first one. Chris McAllister, the lockdown corner for how many years? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And, obviously Edwin Mulitalo was a great offensive lineman for us for a while. So it's going to be interesting to see, man. It's
an important one, though, because last few years, I mean, look, last year was a good draft. But let's be honest, Eric DeCosta's had some lean years since taking over as GM from the draft standpoint. When you include the fact that even those that have been successful picks ultimately found themselves outside of Baltimore within the span of their rookie contracts. Like people can, you can criticize, you can't criticize him necessarily for the Hollywood. I mean, I guess you could because he passed up on some really big time receivers. But also, he didn't even finish his rookie deal here. So you kind of criticize him in multiple ways. But I think there's a lot of pressure on Eric DeCosta to get this draft right.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I have to agree with you in that, like, there's a lot of pressure, but there's a lot of there's a lot of options at corner that have to lower his pressure a little bit. To say, all right, if there's so many contingencies in place, say if corner is the way where we want to go, if this happens, we got this option. If this happens, we got this option. This, what I mean? He's got, not that there's, for example, if Tyler Linderbaum would have been taken 24, what was it? We took him at 26, right? Last year?
I think we got him at 24.
Whatever. If he would have been taken 2 picks before, right?
Yeah.
We might have been sunk, right? Like there weren't a ton of contingencies because we knew we needed. That was the guy, we were all in on him, and that was it. You know what I mean? But I think there's a lot of different scenarios in which the ending ends well for the Ravens if corner is the way that they go. And if it's not, if they don't like any of the guys, they can always trade back. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun draft. I'm glad we kind of transitioned into that for the second half of the show because it is right around the corner.
15 days, 16 days?
Yeah, the last thing I want to talk about, Glenn, is do we see any fireworks and we got to get to some of these super chats. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, okay, let's talk about this really quick. Travis says, the truth, what do you think of DTR in the later rounds? DTR is Dorian Robinson out of UCLA, or excuse me, Thompson Robinson out of UCLA. I don't know much about the kid.
I know. I'll tell you this, DraftPlex, who is the foremost expert on all things NFL draft, has him as the 10th best quarterback in this draft and predicts he'll go somewhere between 4 and 6, the 4th and 6th round. But I will say he's got him at the last one in that range. So he's got 4 quarterbacks listed in the 4 to 6 range, and he is the 4th of those 4. So again, the 10th overall quarterback. I don't know enough about him to speak on what I think about him as a fit for the Ravens, but Yeah, I mean, if you think he's the guy, I do think the Ravens will take a quarterback at some point. It could be an undrafted guy. Like I'm not saying it could be like a Max Duggan who fell completely out of graces with that run in the championship with TCU, despite the fact that he got him there. He played so terribly in the championship series that he's really plummeted. And then he had a bad, I believe it was pro day. He had a really bad pro day. But maybe they find something they like him. It could be an undrafted guy, but I think there will be a rookie quarterback for sure. I think that makes this team as the backup. But again, I could be wrong, but that's just my thought, and it could very well be DTR.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm not super excited to think about using a draft pick on a quarterback, but with only right now at least 5 picks. But I get it. Ultimately, once again, you got to keep filling the hopper. That's what I said earlier. So I gotta, you got to stick to it. But Tom Votto says, with the loss of Calais Campbell, Chuck Clark, and Houston, are you guys worried at all about the lack of veterans on defense? From a leadership perspective. I'm trying to think. I mean, Marlon is obviously a guy. Who else? Michael Pierce is a guy.
Roquan
is the leader of the defense. I mean, from a leadership perspective here, Baltimore, I think he's the closest thing we've seen to Ray since Ray. And I'm not saying he is Ray or close to him, but he's the closest thing we've seen.
Oh, dude, when he got here, it was immediate the respect he got from his teammates.
Yeah, it was
so pretty clear.
It was so transparent when you notice it on the television. I mean, yeah, and when guys like Calais and the other guys are just, deferent to him coming on board, that's huge. But
let's not minimize. Calais Campbell's going to be a loss.
Production is huge. Houston led our team in sacks last year, right?
Yeah, and Calais was a hell of a player, probably our best run defender, but he also was great in the locker room, great in the community. And same with Chuck Clark, excellent communicator, a guy who was fantastic in the practice field in the locker room. Same can be said for Houston. So they will miss those guys, but like Jimmy said,
this is the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And I still think that with Marcus Williams, Marlon Humphrey's an awesome. I mean, you talk about a guy you'd want to be the face of your defense. I mean, Marlon Humphrey's as good as it gets. He's
other
a guy
than his terrible Twitter game.
I love the fact that he goes out on some limbs with his takes, but some of them are wild. Yeah, some of them are like, what the? But yeah, Roquan Smith, born leader. And then we got young guys that I think are ready to step into a bigger role. Look, Michael Pierce, he's a veteran now. He's going to be expected to step into a bigger role as far as being a mouthpiece. Marcus Williams, you signed that big of a contract, you're expected to become more than just a great player. You got to become a leader as well. And then offensively, they got a bunch of guys that I think can kind of fill that role. So, I don't think there's a lack of leadership here.
Yeah, from a production perspective, outside of the leadership aspect of it, I mean, this is the NFL. This is the way it goes. It's a rotating, door. So when a guy like Calais leaves, then you have to rely on a guy like Broderick Washington, like Travis Jones, like you said, Michael Pierce. And sure, maybe they're not a Hall of Fame talent like a Calais Campbell, but getting that same level of production, even if it's with multiple guys, just stuff you have to get used to. Same thing, just like you said, Chuck Clark gone. Okay, well, you got Kyle Hamilton, right? Like, this is the NFL. This is the world that we live in. So it's just kind of how it goes. And the only way the Ravens are going to do it is 9 times out of 10 is doing it with an internal guy. We'll save this for Thursday. I want to talk about PQ. Oh, here we go. Do we trade PQ? That's funny. I'm torn, but risk losing for nothing. This is an interesting one because if there's going to be fireworks on trade draft night, it's going to be Patrick Queen. But to be honest, Patrick Queen would have to be in a package if we're somehow picking up a first. It's not going to be like Hollywood where it's like, oh, here, we'll give you Hollywood, you give us a first. It's not going to happen that way.
Yeah, the fact that they got a first-round pick for Hollywood was just another example of EDC being masterful at the at the trade. That trade was incredible.
Right.
See here. Hey, DK, if you could check, it looks like we're getting some messages here. I was trying to send you a private
What's that?
From a prospective guest that I know DK was working with. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the tough thing about Patrick Queen is let's not forget that. Let's say he does play out this year, and the Ravens don't pick up his fifth year option, and they let him walk. They're not necessarily getting nothing. They would likely get at least a 4th round comp pick for the guy because he's probably going to sign a pretty decent contract, and it could be as high as a third-round comp if he makes that step, to the next level that it looked like he was making when he was playing next to Roquan. Now, you put Roquan next to him all season, but from the start, maybe he does play himself into a massive contract elsewhere, and the Ravens get a third-round comp pick. So I don't think it's necessarily he's going to lose anything. The question is, can you get more than that comp pick's value by trading him now rather than just keep the talent and keep that player on your team? Like, I think the value is keeping him, and if he leaves, you get a comp pick, because I don't think you're going to get much more than that comp pick as compensation.
Yep, and that's a great point, Glenn. I'm going to say you have convinced me of what I believe, and that is he stays this year. I don't think that there's movement on Pat Queen. And then he goes out, gets a deal next year. He goes up to New York, goes up the Jersey Turnpike and plays for Wink, and we get a comp pick.
I would not. I mean, look, I'd be fine with that, because you can't pay 2 inside linebackers. I think if you trade them now, you're not getting anything better than that comp pick anyway. So let's just have 2 studs. Let's have probably the best linebacker duo in the league for one more season and see where that and the stuff around it can take us.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's it for us tonight, right, Glenn?
Yeah, that's it. That was fun, though. And it looks like, shout out to DK, we got a pretty big time guest coming on Thursday. Former Raven will be joining us. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Not going to tell you guys who it is. Leave a little teaser. It looks like I think a fan favorite and former Raven that I think people are going to be pretty excited to see is right now tentatively scheduled to join us this Thursday. So make sure you're back with us Thursday, 8 p.m., where we're going to be live once again, and we'll likely have former Raven on here with us, which is super exciting. But that's it for us tonight. Quick shout out, Don C. Appreciate you making it as always. Tanja Bowman, appreciate you as well. Lisa Ann, as always, here in the chat. Justin Roberts, appreciate you. Brandon Ruiz, thanks for coming out. Irvin Green, Paul Jenkins, Brandon Thompson, Latanya Brooks, everyone. Adam78, you've been here forever. Appreciate everyone who comes out every Tuesday and Thursday with us. Thanks so much, and we'll talk soon.